Hello, everybody, and welcome to Becoming Aware with Anna, the show that informs you of the most relevant issues in the world. Let's start with a quote that will set the tone for today's show, and it will inform us of everything that we will discuss. This quote is by Frank N. Card. It's a representative of the Democratic Party. Will urban sprawl spread so far that most people lose all touch with nature? Will the day come when the only bird a typical American child ever sees is a canary in a pet shop window? When the only wild animal he knows is a rat glimpsed on a night drive through some city slum? So yes, we will talk about urban sprawl, which is the rapid expansion of urban areas, and it might not seem like a big threat right now, but in the near future, it will cost us several natural resources very, very important to our living. Urban sprawl and overpopulation go hand in hand, and it goes back to the 1950s when people felt the need to moving to suburban areas as a result of the railroad creation. The introduction of automobiles changed people's lives, and the ordinary working American started purchasing these automobiles to travel for business and for pleasure, which led to huge traffic jams. Additionally, during the period of economic prosperity in the United States following World War II, increased manufacturing output and new federal loan programs allowed many American citizens to purchase inexpensive single-family homes. At the same time, the road building projects were being developed, which led to the interstate highway system that we all know and use today. All of these factors contributed to rising local populations, led to substantial increases in the geographic extent or spatial footprint of the metropolitan areas in the United States. Now, that is how the issue of urban sprawl originated. And to understand how broad this issue can be, we're going to discuss three different points. Urban sprawl is rapidly increasing. Urban sprawl contributes adversely to the environment, and it can't necessarily be stopped, but we definitely can mitigate its negative impacts. For today's show, I am very pleased to present to you guys my first guest. Her name is Sofia Beltran, and she is a representative and advocate for the Federal Office for the Environment in the United States. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm very honored to be here to inform the audience about the terrible impacts urban sprawl has over our community and environment.
So, Sofia, the first question that I have for you today is, I've heard several experts talking about the benefits of urban sprawl, but can you talk to us about the consequences that we don't usually hear about of this issue in particular?
Although some persons would argue that urban sprawl has its benefits, such as creating local economic growth, urban sprawl has also negative consequences on their environment and for residents. Air pollution, sedentary lifestyles, wildlife extinction, food supply shortage are some of the major consequences that affect our environment today. Urban sprawl contributes adversely to the environment. Firstly, the development of the automotive industry leads to the irregular use of fossil fuels, while commonly known as the gas that you and me use every day. This fossil fuel is compounded by nitrogen oxide, black carbons, and particulate matter that sneak into our lungs and generates many chronic illnesses. Chronic illnesses such as asthma, bronchitis, pneumonia. The American Lungs Association have reported that 33,000 people have been killed by these car emissions annually in the United States alone. In addition to air contaminants, cars also foment sedentary lifestyles. The auto-dependent development and the uncontrolled growth make it very difficult for people to get exercise and maintain a healthy way of living. In the same way, elevating the risk of getting a cardiovascular disease such as hypertension, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and maybe obesity. And sometimes even some types of cancer. According to the World Health Organization, 60 to 85% of people of the world present symptoms of sedentary lifestyles. They are not getting enough physical activity. On the other hand, the spread of urban cities and rural territories is posing a great stress on many ecosystems, such as woodlands, wetlands, rainforests, and many oceans. For instance, the Mississippi gopher frog and the Florida panther are rapidly losing their habitats because of human population. Still others, like the polar bear, are facing many factors that lead to the extinction of this species. These species, important to our diversity, were announced at risk of extinction by the Center for Biological Diversity. Wildlife extinction caused by urban sprawl is also correlated with the agricultural land threat. Finally, the invasion on agricultural land leads to the food supply shortage. Urban development and agricultural lands are competing for the same land. The larger the demand on the farms becomes, the more they need land to cultivate, thus pushing farmlands further away from cities and creating the need to transport food over longer distances. Some of the results of this big factor are the food prices rise, the less food stability, and the decrease in natural resources.
Well, thank you, Sophia. It's been great having you today. You've given us very important knowledge about this topic and just understanding overall the environmental impacts of urban sprawl in our society. And I look forward to seeing you in another episode.
Thank you so much for having me today. It's such an honor, and I'm very grateful to share my knowledge with you all and to see the improvements that are coming up now that you all now are aware. Thank you very much.
I am very pleased to present to you guys to my second guest. Her name is Liana Ski, and she is a senior urban studies professor at the University of Boston, and she will be talking to us about the solutions to this major problem, urban sprawl. Welcome, Liana.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. I'm so very pleased to be here. I think it's very important for the public to be aware of this issue.
All right, Liana, so there's been a question that's been running my mind, and I feel like the urban sprawl problem, the urban sprawl issue is not something that we can fix 100%, but is there something that we can do to mitigate it, to kind of reduce the impact and save the future generations from this?
So urban sprawl can't necessarily be stopped, but it can be reduced. One way of doing this is going straight to the root of the problem and reducing the amount of overpopulation. Each year, there's 131 million births, and every day people keep on living longer. This is why our cities keep on growing and expanding. So if we want to lower the amount of overpopulation, we will lower the demand for growth. Some ways for countries to do this is to offer more incentives for people who choose to have less children, or for more developing countries, they can offer more education to women because there's a correlation between female education and lower birth rates. And overall, all countries can offer more education about contraception and access to it. Another way to reduce urban sprawl is by practicing smart growth. Smart growth is a type of development that aims to limit the economic and environmental impacts of urban sprawl. It does this by making areas more compact, installing a sense of community, placing residential areas near areas of employment, and by developing better public transport systems, such as bus and metro systems that extend further and accommodate more people. All this leads to people driving less, which was proven by a San Francisco State University study that said with a 10% increase in growth, 10% increase in compact development in the smart growth amenities, there was a 20% decrease in miles traveled by vehicles. All this means that there's less pollution, which means less cars on the road. And it also means that people have to find other means of getting to their destination, which could be riding a bike or walking to public transport, which will improve their health. People can also minimize urban sprawl by repurposing abandoned areas. Just imagine passing by a rundown power plant where each brick is holding on to its last piece of cement and its ceiling is caving in at odd angles. Now wait a couple months and this once rundown building is replaced by a beautiful, flourishing aquarium where people from all around town are coming to see its exotic marine life. This is a true story that happened in Cleveland, Ohio. And this type of reinventing is called retrofitting. And according to the Phoenix Urban Research Laboratory, it's the remaking of abandoned chain stores, dead malls, disconnected apartment complexes, and segregated housing pods. Retrofitting creates new spaces where the community can come together and so that it will feel more obligated to take care of those areas. It also offers more jobs and housing to support for the growing population. And if you think that the case in Cleveland, Ohio was special, then I'm glad to say that you're wrong, because this happens all over. Just another case was in McAllen, Texas, where an abandoned Walmart was turned into an award-winning public library. So people, just like how I said before, they can utilize space better and they can reduce the population, but that doesn't change the fact that these environmental issues are being caused because people in those urban areas aren't being eco-friendly. If we want to reduce urban sprawl's environmental impact, we have to start by being more conscientious and proactive about cleaning up our environment. Change starts from within. So some examples of how to clean up the environment are to switch to more clean forms of energy, such as solar power or wind power, that will reduce the use of fossil fuels, or to use electric cars, which would reduce the amount of car emissions, or plant trees or shrubs so that they'll absorb greenhouse gases. And lastly, compost, because it'll reduce the amount of food waste. Now, for any of the previously mentioned solutions to be effective, people first have to be aware of the problem. Many people don't know about the effects of urban sprawl, and this lack of knowledge makes growth often seem like a positive thing. After all, it must not be that bad if it's creating houses and homes. However, this misconception leads to urban sprawl not being taken seriously, thus not being put in place not being that important to the government. So the more people that are aware of this issue, the more likely it's going to be tackled head on. And overall, education will just always be the most important factor in tackling any of these problems.
Thank you so much, Liana, for being here tonight with us. She's given us different aspects to it, the solutions from contraception to just being aware of the problem and just making our audience aware that this is a real thing. It's been great having you today, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.
Thank you. It's always so great to be on here and talk about these problems because people need to know about this and they should be talked about more. So I'm very glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, now thanks to Liana and Sophia, we know about the origin, we know about the consequences, and we know about possible solutions to this ongoing problem of urban sprawl that we must take care of now. In fact, according to Andrew Brunner, a graduate student Master of Transportation program at the South Carolina State University, research and studies show that it is evident that urban sprawl has been an issue dating back to ancient times. From oversight of the environmental factors and more focus on economic progress of the United States, urban sprawl has been allowed to go unchecked for decades. Culture, economic structure, and the government play a role in the outcome of urban sprawl in our society. In addition, as we began to address sprawl on a variety of levels, from local zoning, personal transportation, land use decisions, to federal regulations, it is imperative to consider health aspects on policy development to this problem. From excessive air contaminants to elevated risk of diseases such as hypertension, diabetes, this is an issue that we must take care of now. And just like Robert Sohn, a British activist, said, the greatest threat of our planet is the belief that someone else will save it. We must take action, and we must take action now. This concludes our show tonight, and remember that you can always get in touch with us if there is any particular subject you would like us to expand on, either on Facebook or on Twitter. And remember that this has been Becoming Aware with Anna. Have a great night and see you next time.